Some would say that life is pretty difficult for ordinary workers in Zimbabwe. A figure of 94% unemployment has been mooted for some time, but we understand that the majority of people actually now are working in the informal economy. So what does that mean for organizations such as trade unions, and what do they see as a part of the challenges that Zimbabwe is facing? Well, let's talk now to Orbit Masaraure, who's the president of the Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union, and Mandla Sibanda, who's the Secretary General of the Central and Lyman Allied Workers Union of Zimbabwe. Gentlemen, thanks very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thanks, Peter, for having us.
All right.
Thanks, Peter. Just a point of correction. It's the cement and lime.
Right.
Cement and lime and Allied Workers Union of Zimbabwe.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Well, let me start with you. We hear this figure of 94% unemployment in Zimbabwe, and that by and large, most people have had to find something to do in the informal economy. Give us a sense, especially as a trade unionist, what is the state of employment or unemployment in Zimbabwe?
Basically, Peter, you know, when we talk of employment in an economy, we are basically talking of industrialized employment. Of course, because of the current economic environment in the country, people have resorted to other means of earning a living. And this is what has been termed the informal economy, the informal employment. It's about waking up today and deciding, well, look, I can't sit and do nothing in the wake of such an economy. I have to eat, I have to feed my kids. So let me go and buy a packet of sweets, and then I sell them for a profit to earn a living. That is undocumented employment. It's very difficult for the government, for example, to realize anything from such employment. It's actually a survival tactic more than employment per se. In what we envisage is a situation where the country is industrialized and people go and work to enhance the GDP of the country, and everything is done above board and the likes. So to count the informal employment as employment is somewhat not quite proper. Of course, it is employment because someone is earning a living out of it. But it's not what we would want to see in a normal situation.
Okay, Mr. Masaraure, explain to us how we got to this situation. What led up to the current scenario where we have unemployment levels that are on these levels, and this informal economy that perhaps is one of the largest per capita in the world?
Thanks, Peter, for asking that question. I think we can track it back to the post-colonial era, where we failed to manage the transition from the dualized economy, which accommodated only a white minority at the center and kept the majority of people at the periphery. So what we then ended up having post the colonial era was the black elites who then occupied, but to keep the majority of our people on the margins of the moderate to try to expand the formal economy, because you understand that the majority of our people were either peasants in the rural areas who still lived in part of the proper capitalism that was enduring then. But then when we now have the black elites, they maintained the same status quo. They occupied the center. little efforts were made from 1980, 1990. But then we then had the ISAP era, then obviously when we adopted neoliberalism as the way to go. But then again, at the end of the day, we were not addressing the fundamentals. Then we also had serious challenges with the ISAP agenda, which led to massive retrenchments, massive job losses from the few who had been accommodated in the formal economy. Then later we have the issue of the DRC war, the War Veterans Compensation Fund. And then when we try to deal with the land question, we also further pushed some people into the informal economy. So it has been really a long road for Zimbabwe. But then also the way we have been managing the economy, we've failed to grow an economy which is inclusive. We have failed to bridge the income inequality gap. We have failed to industrialize. We have failed to ensure that our people are all participating in the economy by the policies and our own policy attitude that we have adopted. So at the end of the day, then you also have the issue of corruption, where the leaders themselves, the elites, are pushing everyone to the margins because they want to accumulate the little that is there. They want to privatize it and make it their own. So in the absence of genuine state planning, in the absence of a genuine state intentions to really say we want to grow a cake which is all inclusive, we don't have an economy which can accommodate anyone and everyone. So this is why we have this big informal economy. My view is it's because of our approach to how we should govern as a people. The governance architecture has been a governance architecture which is not developmental. We would have loved to have a national try something so democratic but also developmental. But we failed the democratic test, we failed the developmental test, and now we live with the consequences because a few individuals have chosen to appropriate national wealth for selfish gain.
All right, we'll talk a little bit more about that just now. But a question for both of you, and I'll start with you, Mr. Sibanda. The role of trade unions in 2022. Yes. There was a time where trade unions perhaps gave birth to real opposition politics. What's the state of play now?
The state of play now is having done that, they have been realized to be a threat to the government, and as such, their operations have been quite stifled in a lot of ways. The government is now using a number of tactics to actually infiltrate the trade union movement and make sure that it disempowers the trade union movement in a number of ways. One of the ways is obviously co-option, where in one way or the other they will find a way of infiltrating the trade unions in such a manner that the trade unionists will end up aligning to the government, even if it is glaringly clear that the situation on the ground is very bad for the general workers and the trade unionists themselves. And those that have been resisting those kind of moves by the government have actually faced the wrath of the government. My colleague there, Masaraure, has spent quite a lot of time in incarceration over something that was just but advancing the interest and rights of the employees. So basically, we still need a lot to do in terms of trade unionism so that we maintain our posture and space in the trade union fraternity, and we maintain our stature and posture in the political dynamics of the country, because we obviously are part of the politics of the country. I have heard my colleagues, for example, indicating that they may not be comfortable with being political in their endeavors. How can a trade unionist afford not to be political? Because trade unionism is basically politics. So what we are saying is we need a movement that will make sure that the interests of workers and the general populace, all the poor, are catered for, and are catered for in a reasonable and rational manner. So yes, we are facing challenges, but look, challenges have been there. Even the present government has faced challenges when they first advanced the interest of the blacks when it was the colonial rule. So, but now we have to keep fighting.
All right, we're running out of time, but Mr. Masaraure, we heard from the president of the ZCTU, who said that the government was doing the best it can under the circumstances. Do you agree with that? Hello, Mr. Masaraure, can you hear me?
He's supposed to be the Secretary General, and I'm sure.
Yes, carry on.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Peter?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, carry on.
Okay, so to begin with, Japhet Moyo is supposed to be the Secretary General of the ZCTU. He's not the president of the ZCTU. And then secondly, I was shocked when I listened to him. He's a man that I used to regard highly. When he was saying whatever he said on SABC, it came as a shock to me. This government is not doing anything for the people of Zimbabwe. This government is specializing in looting the little resources that we have as a nation. We know we have a beautiful country, like he rightly said in one of his statements, but this beautiful country is being abused by a few who are looting our national wealth and appropriating it for personal gain. So what then is so apparent in Japhet Moyo's statement is that he is one of the people that have been co-opted by the regime. And it's not anything new. This is a guy who is going to retirement and he wants to retire comfortably. But the ordinary worker who is out there, who is suffering from the poverty, which is induced by the mismanagement of the economy, we will not agree with what Japhet said. So fundamentally, what we face as a people right now is a crisis where people who are now scared of the regime, where people who are now hopeless, where people who have given up on life are choosing to align themselves to the regime of the day to try to secure some comfort within it. But we condemn that. We maintain that the role of the trade union movement at the moment should be, to begin with, secure the economic interest, the collective economic interests of the workers. But how do you secure the collective economic interests of the workers when you don't have the blue rights? Well, the blue rights are the political and the civil rights, which will give you space to raise a placard in the street, to picket and say, we are not earning enough. So if you have a government which denies you freedom of association and assembly, you should be fighting that government and say, I need this space as a trade unionist to say, if I get this space, that is the only way I can advance my economic interests as a worker. Unfortunately, the current crop of trade union leaders at the center of ZCTU, particularly what Japhet was saying, which was just nonsense, we're pushing for the creation of civil and political space, which can be used by the workers to demand their economic rights, which they are apparently being denied. But what you were saying then, and we hope one day you have an opportunity to explain to all of us what it meant. But we remain guided by what Joe Slovo says. The trade union movement, at no particular point in time, Joe Slovo at some point was the general secretary of the South African Communist Party. You were speaking at the time of apartheid, and we live in an almost apartheid era right now in Zimbabwe. But his prescription, a revolutionary prescription, I would say, is that the trade union movement should remain non-partisan, accommodate all people, and become the prime mass organization which can bring all workers together. But the conflict which then exists will force it to be political. So at this particular point in time, we are very political but remain non-partisan, pushing an agenda for the collective interest of the workers so that they enjoy their economic rights, which they continue to be denied by a repressive establishment which is so much militarized, so they will use the military force to deny the ordinary people a voice. But then whilst they are denying us a voice, they are also denying us a meal. So we want to create space where we can speak, and when we begin to speak, that is the only way we can start demanding a meal. So those things are interconnected, and we will push and continue to demand the political space which we will use to demand the economic gains.
Gentlemen, we've run out of time. Perhaps we'll have another conversation in the near future. But thank you for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts about the role of trade unions at this difficult time in Zimbabwe's history. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you so much for having us, Peter.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
All right. That's Obet Masaraure, who's the president of the Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union, and Mandla Sibanda, who's the secretary general of the Cement and Lime and Allied Workers Union of Zimbabwe.